All right, this is actually big. The Exynos 2600 is not playing around this time. Samsung's new chip, which is expected to power the base Galaxy S26 in some regions, just showed up in a serious graphics test. And the results? Pretty impressive. In the Basemark in Vitro 1.0 ray tracing benchmark, the Xclipse 960 GPU inside the Exynos 2600 scored 8,321 points. Now, let me explain why that matters. Ray tracing is heavy stuff. It is the kind of graphics tech that makes light reflections, shadows, and effects look super realistic. We usually hear about ray tracing in gaming PCs and consoles, so seeing it pushed this hard on a phone chip is a big deal. And here's the crazy part. This Xclipse 960 GPU actually beat Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 GPU by around 8%. Yes, Exynos beating Snapdragon in graphics. It also beat MediaTek's Dimensity 9500 GPU by around 17%. That is not a tiny gap. That is noticeable. So in pure graphics power, especially for heavy visual tasks like gaming with ray tracing, the Exynos 2600 is looking like a leader right now. And there's a reason for that. Samsung is using AMD's RDNA 4 architecture inside this GPU. That's the same tech AMD uses in its modern graphics cards for PCs. So this is not some random mobile design. This is serious gaming DNA inside a phone chip. That partnership between Samsung and AMD is finally starting to show real results. Now, before we get too excited, let's calm down a bit. Graphics is only one part of the story. When it comes to CPU performance, especially single-core speed, the Exynos 2600 is still behind the latest Snapdragon chip. Single-core performance is important because it affects everyday speed. Opening apps, scrolling, general smoothness, that quick snap feeling when you use your phone. So while Exynos might win in graphics power, Snapdragon still has an edge in raw CPU speed. And that creates an interesting situation. If you're a gamer or someone who cares about heavy graphics, the Exynos 2600 might actually be the better choice this time. But if you care more about peak CPU speed and benchmark numbers, Snapdragon might still look stronger. This could explain why Samsung splits chips by region. Some markets may get the Exynos version of the Galaxy S26, others, like the US, will likely get the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. And honestly, this time it doesn't look like a massive downgrade situation. In fact, for gaming, Exynos might even be more exciting. Now, we still have to see real-world results. Benchmarks are controlled tests. They show potential, but we need to see how it handles heat, how stable it is, how long it can maintain that performance without throttling. Because we've seen powerful chips before that look amazing on paper, but struggle in real phones. If Samsung has fixed thermal issues and the Exynos 2600 can hold that GPU power steadily, this could be the first time in a long time where people aren't disappointed with an Exynos version. And that would be a big comeback story. So right now, here's the simple breakdown. Graphics power, Exynos 2600 is winning. Ray tracing performance, very strong. CPU single-core speed, Snapdragon still ahead. This is shaping up to be a balanced fight instead of a one-sided one. For the Galaxy S26, that means your experience could depend on what you care about most, gaming visuals or raw CPU speed. Either way, this is the first time in a while that Exynos is actually leading in something major, and that makes the Galaxy S26 even more interesting to watch.